to 15 and counting. Touchdown Alabama Magazine's premier football show coming to you once again live from inside of the heartbeat of the University of Alabama, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. That is right here at Rama Jama. Once again, happy Thursday to all of you viewers out there watching us on YouTube today. I'm your host, Stephen M. Smith, and alongside me once again, we have our co-host, Ivan White. This past weekend, Alabama took on the Colorado State Rams. The point spread for that game was a 39-point spread in Alabama's favor. Alabama could only put up 31 points. The final score was 31-6, but they only fulfilled 25 points of a 39-point spread. So Vegas was seriously let down last week by the Alabama Crimson Tide. But Ivan, in recapping this game, what did you think about Colorado State? Were they prepared? Did they really come out and show that just because Alabama's number one, we're going to push them?
Well, they helped out their own recruiting cause last week, that's for sure. Obviously, if they had any recruits that were borderline saying it's Colorado State, a team that could actually make some noise if I go there within the possibility, and obviously they showed last week they can make some noise. Obviously, they did lose 31-6, but they did put up a fight for a majority of the game, and they showed that they do have the heart and will to hang with the big teams like the University of Alabama.
A great job indeed for Colorado State, just going pound for pound with the Crimson Tide. Let's talk about Jim McElwain here. Jim McElwain, former Alabama offensive coordinator, of course, helped the Tide to a BCS title in 2009. Was a homecoming for him. He came back home to Bryant-Denny Stadium. Would love to have a win, as all coaches would, but you gotta say, he has to tell his players to not hold your head down because they held their own. They really held their own. They made it tough on Alabama to run the ball. The Crimson Tide only had 66 yards rushing last week, as opposed to they had 234 yards rushing against Texas A&M last week. Now, be that as it may, Alabama sat down a lot of players due to injury. A lot of players didn't play, including Amari Cooper. But for Alabama, the fan base here has gotten so spoiled with the past success Alabama's had with recruiting, with bringing in talent from the offensive and defensive side of the ball, that when you play against a non-conference team and you don't put up the type of numbers that people expect, it's kind of a downer, especially for the fans. So when you watch this game, Ivan, Alabama, Colorado State, what kind of vibe were you getting?
I was getting a vibe of anticipation, and an anticipation turned to what is going on now. I was anticipating, okay, Alabama has started out slow at the gates throughout most of their games this season. In a Virginia Tech game and A&M game, I pictured them. I said, okay, they're just starting out slow. And then as the game went on and progressed, I was not worried because I knew there wasn't a shadow of a doubt that they would win the game. I was just a little anticipating when this offense was going to get off the starting gate and say, hey, there we go, let's get the ball rolling. And of course, we saw little spurts with the touchdown pass from AJ, but that's about all we saw. And unfortunately, it never did turn into a normal Alabama game. I mean, obviously coming off a game where we put 49 points up, you're expecting the offense to be as prolific as it was in the previous week. But obviously that didn't happen, and I found myself not disappointed, because obviously you can't be disappointed in the win. I just felt myself a little let down from the way we won.
You were let down, Ivan. Those fans disappointed. Those fans expected a blowout from Alabama against Colorado State. But as you mentioned, Ivan, A.J. McCarron did have a touchdown pass in that game to DeAndre White, who's starting to look good now. Remember, DeAndre White was supposed to be the man last season, had a ACL tear against Ole Miss, missed the rest of the 2012 college football season, but lo and behold, he is back, and it's looking pretty good. Had the flea flicker touchdown against Texas A&M, had a touchdown in this past game against Colorado State, so DeAndre White is back and looking very healthy. Kudos to Chris Black this past week. He caught his first touchdown pass of the year from Blake Sims. Keep in mind, Blake Sims is known for running, but kudos to Mr. Sims. He threw a touchdown in his first game against Colorado State.
History in the making. If we were Bryant-Denny, our cameraman, Will Crow, and I were standing right next to each other, we said, we just saw history. Blake Sims actually threw a touchdown pass. Yes, it was the wide receiver screen pass, but still, it was a touchdown pass.
He got to pay her.
He got to pay her.
That's what it's about. Yes, he got to pay her to Chris Black, who was also supposed to be the receiver, the main receiver in Alabama's receiving corps last season. Chris Black came in highly recruited along with Amari Cooper. Chris Black was presumed by a lot of fans as the next best thing to Julio Jones. You know, it's hard to say. See, Julio Jones, 6'4", 205, 10 pounds. When he came to Alabama, very quick, physical presence of nature, those big hands that could take the top off the defense. But Chris Black in his own right, very fast, agile, great speed, has great hands to run. Chris Rouse, a separated shoulder in summer camp last season, kept him from being on the field. But Alabama fans happy to see Chris Black back on the field against Colorado State and catching that touchdown. But at Alabama State, the University of Alabama, the Crimson Tide did win against Colorado State 31-6, which leads to the next segment here, going back to Alabama's struggles offensively. Ivan, do you think that Alabama has more confidence offensively playing against conference teams than non-conference?
I don't want to say yes to that answer. I believe they have the same mentality going in there each and every game. I believe that's the way Coach Saban teaches his teams to play the game. He teaches them to have the same mentality no matter which opponent you're playing. You could be playing Chattanooga, you could be playing LSU. You're supposed to go out there with the same mentality and the same way to play the game. I just believe that this season is a little more coming out the gates, like I said earlier. Coming out the gates is a problem they've had. They don't have a problem as the game progresses. We saw at A&M, they went down 14-0, and some people thought, including myself, that it was another repeat of the previous year.
I was on the edge of my seat.
And then you see the game progress, and you see, oh, they've adapted, and I believe that's the best word to describe this team. This team can adapt, and they keep saying that this team needs to find its image and needs to find its likeness that it can claim this year's team is famous for. And I believe adapting throughout the progression of the season will be that thing, that they can adapt. They were the best team that can adapt, because in an A&M game, 14-0 turned into 35 unanswered points because the offense adapted to the defense that A&M was playing, and the defense adapted to the offense that A&M put on the field.
It's all about being able to adapt. Is correct, Ivan. And Coach Saban's always talking about the process. Can his players buy into the process this season? It's not last year's team. This is 2013's team here at Alabama. Can they really buy into the process that we can have a productive season with the pieces we have here? And ending off this recap segment after the game, of course, two of the leaders of the team, A.J. McCarron and linebacker C.J. Mosley, addressed the team in the locker room saying, guys, we got to play better. We got to play a lot better, not just offensively, but defensively. We got to communicate more. Defensively, Alabama gave up 279 yards to Colorado State. And that has got to get better offensively and defensively. Alabama has got to play better, but that will come in time as they continue to adapt and focus in on the task at hand. But that was last week. This week, Alabama is back at Bryant-Denny Stadium to host another SEC game, and lo and behold, Ivan, it's not the old daddy Ole Miss anymore. You can't just expect to walk in and roll over Ole Miss. Ole Miss has got some bite to them, and can we officially say that swagger is back in Oxford?
I believe we can say that swagger is back in Oxford. Now with the recruitment of Robert Camdici, the #1 recruit of the nation, that's put them on the map again, and now Ole Miss has some excitement around the program that had been seen since 2003, Eli Manning's senior season over there at Ole Miss. And this year they come with confidence. As we heard earlier throughout the media outlets, that Ole Miss is actually talking some trash this week, saying they're going to shock the world. They're going to pull an A&M here at Bryant-Denny.
Talking trash and shocking the world is all about getting your mindset on trying to compete and beat the #1 team in the nation, beating the Alabama Crimson Tide. But if you look at last year, Ivan, last year for Alabama, there were only a few teams that really challenged the Crimson Tide here at Bryant-Denny, and lo and behold, Ole Miss was one of them. Now, the final score depicted 33-14, and people look at that and they say, oh man, Bama blew them out. But if you look at the work and the play on the field, Ole Miss went pound for pound with the Crimson Tide. Though this game has some sentimental values for the Andrew White, as we mentioned. That was the game when we tore the ACL and the emergence of Amari Cooper. But going back to Ole Miss, they really competed. And if it wasn't for a few Ole Miss turnovers, who knows, this game could have went the opposite direction. So in this game right here, is this a statement game for Hugh Freeze coming back to Bryant-Denny? Because you don't get another chance to make a first impression. Will this be a statement game for Hugh Freeze?
Well, I believe with Ole Miss, the position they're in, every SEC game is a statement game this year, but especially anytime you play the #1 team in the nation, it's obviously going to be a statement game. It's going to be, how can you do against the very best that the nation has to offer? And this game is going to see, has Ole Miss made a lot of advances, or have they just played, I wouldn't say weaker opponents, or have they just gotten a little bit lucky? Because obviously, you can't expect a 74-yard touchdown run out of Jeff Scott like he did in the Vanderbilt game. I'm probably saying about maybe 2 out of 10 times that would actually happen again. That was just great play calling and the right defense. Unfortunately, the wrong defense for Vanderbilt actually was called on that play that caused them to get the touchdown in one of the most exciting games I've seen in a while. Then you just go to Austin, and during a very chaotic time in Austin right now with Mac Brown's situation, I just want to say this is a statement game, because in previous games this season, it seems like they've just taken advantage of certain situations. They've been more opportunist than more skilled team.
When you look at what you said, there are about weaker teams, I wouldn't necessarily call Texas a weaker team, weaker opponent. Keep in mind, Texas is still a top-tier program that be there as in May. Mac Brown, the Longhorns are kind of on a downslide right now. They won the game against Kansas State, and Mac Brown's trying to keep his job. But when you mention the program Texas, people still want to go there. People still want to get recruited to Texas. So Texas is still a top-tier program in a lot of opinions, in a lot of minds of people out there. But nevertheless, Ole Miss did get the win. They're coming into this season 3-0 and looking for their first 4-0 start for the first time since 1970 via the Archie Manning years when he was at Ole Miss. But some of these impact players coming in this game for the Ole Miss Rebels, you look at quarterback Bo Wallace, as I mentioned, running back Jeff Scott, and 6'3", 215-pound receiver Dante Moncrief. Keep in mind, when Alabama played Ole Miss in that season, Alabama held Dante Moncrief to only 2 receptions for 37 yards. What does Moncrief need to do against this young Alabama secondary? Keep in mind, he's no Mike Evans, but he is 6'3", 6'2", 6'3", 215 pounds. What does Dante Moncrief need to do to create some separation against this young Alabama secondary to get his payback in this game?
What I'm expecting him to do is I'm expecting a lot of fly routes, which means I'm expecting them to just tell him to run and jump up for it. That's exactly what A&M started doing near the end of that game. They just told Mike Evans, run, we'll throw it up there. You have the height advantage over the smaller cornerbacks, and and he did go up and get the ball for
him.
He
went up and got Mike Evans. Did you see that? The arms of that guy? That guy is a freak of nature. That guy's an athlete. But Dante Moncrief so far this season, 11 receptions for 173 yards and 2 touchdowns. So going back to Jeff Scott, this could be his game right here. Coming into this season, Jeff Scott, 35 carries, 330 yards, 2 touchdowns. A lot of people are talking about, Todd Gurley is the cream of the crop in the SEC as far as running backs are concerned. But don't count out Jeff Scott. He's a small guy, but he's full of quickness. He's got some power. He's that nice little change of pace back that's deceptively fast. And you can't just arm tackle him. You have to wrap up and bring Jeff Scott down. So what does Jeff Scott need to do to take some pressure, not only off Bo Wallace, but kind of limit the possessions Alabama has in the field with his run game?
Well, after the Vanderbilt game, I actually put Jeff Scott down as one of my Heisman sleepers for this season. And after seeing what he did to Vanderbilt, I'm slowly starting to think he had his first Heisman moment there. Most of the time when Heisman winning quarterbacks or running backs or any athlete or any position, they have a second moment. I believe this could be the game where he has a second moment in a win or a loss. I believe, because even RG3, I believe he had 2 or 3 losses in the season where he won the Heisman Trophy as well. It's not just winning, it's your on-field performance. And I believe with the Alabama defense, more pass-oriented. The run game, no team has actually attempted to run the ball down Alabama's throat. And I believe this will be the game where Hugh Freeze does throw Jeff Scott out there and say, hey, nobody's ever done this, because everybody's been, I wouldn't say afraid, but hesitant to try and run the ball in this great Alabama defense. We're not going to try and just pass it on you. We're going to try and run it. And Jeff Scott, I believe he's going to have to be the guy and step up. And I believe this could be one of the games where he has a second Heisman moment, just like Johnny Manziel had a Heisman moment in Bryant-Denny.
You're putting Jeff Scott in the Heisman conversation after this game. You are putting your pin on Jeff Scott after this game.
It's the past couple seasons, it's been a player that nobody saw when the season started. When the season started, I don't care what you say. You did not say Jeff Scott was going to be a Heisman candidate. Depending on what he does in this game this Saturday, he can easily be a Heisman candidate. And I had him as a sleeper Heisman candidate after the Vanderbilt game, seeing the performance he had in that game.
That's a great point you make. Of course, last season, everybody knew Johnny Manziel is Jonathan Manziel. They didn't know he would be a Heisman Trophy winner, especially after the Florida game, because nobody was following him. But lo and behold, after the win against Alabama, folks saying, look at Manziel, the folktale character Manziel, as he walks home holding the bronze trophy, being the Heisman Trophy at the end of last season. But now let's get to the quarterback situation for Ole Miss. Bo Wallace. Keep in mind, Bo Wallace is not the fastest guy in the world. But he can run that Hugh Freeze offense. He has some pretty good speed, can do the zone read, the quarterback draw, what have you. But the thing that impresses me about Bo Wallace is his arm strength, and he can be accurate when he wants to be. Not saying he's accurate all the time, but when he wants to be in big time games, he can show a lot of college defensive coordinators and defenses themselves that Bo Wallace can be an accurate quarterback. So what does Bo Wallace have to do in this game? He's going to a hostile environment with a capacity crowd of 100,000 plus in Bryant-Denny at night. What does he have to do to keep his composure, make correct reads, and most importantly, keep his team in the mindset of winning this game?
I believe he has to keep this, first of all, the morale or the swagger up on the Ole Miss sidelines, even when he's on and off the field. And I also believe that the option game will come in very handy for Ole Miss this game.
Yes.
As you saw in the Vanderbilt game, it just completely destroyed the Vanderbilt defense. There was one touchdown I remember specifically. He just walked in, nobody even paid attention to him. And I believe that's going to be one of those games. And I know we keep trying to bring this game up, but I don't want to scare Crimson Tide fans. But this is kind of reminding me a little bit of the A&M game, as it doesn't have all the hype as the other games, but it does have the possibility of being the game that Alabama has, that game where it's close. It could be the game like LSU where we're down and it turns out to be a comeback win. Or it could be like A&M where they come out firing, especially with this season's team not coming out the gate really fast. But hopefully with the C.J. Mosley and A.J. McCarron's speech, that can help them come out the gate a little faster and wake up. But I just believe the option game, they're going to have to watch after that, because I believe that will be Bo Wallace's greatest attribute this week.
Speaking of the option game with Bo Wallace, I remember last season when Ole Miss took on LSU in Baton Rouge. I remember that game like it was yesterday. Hugh Freeze called the option play, and Bo Wallace did a phenomenal job of holding onto the ball as he takes the snap and causing defensive back Marquise Mingo to bite down, thinking that it's going to Jeff Scott, and Bo Wallace pulls the ball out and goes around back left side of that LSU defense and goes 74 yards for a touchdown. So Alabama's going to have to keep an eye on that option game. Now going back to that option game, what does Alabama do? Do you have Adrian Hubbard or Ed Stinson containment outside and have C.J. Mosley spy again? Or do you pressure up front with your defensive line and just have your linebackers contained it outside? What does defensive coordinator Kirby Smart do against this option attack? Bo Wallace, keep in mind, this is not a small quarterback. Bo Wallace is a tall, physical guy.
I believe you assigned C.J. Mosley the same position you assigned him for the A&M game. The spy and the leader of the defense, as he's always been this season. You have to make sure he stays at home. Obviously, everybody in the stand, not in the stand, obviously everybody back here in Tuscaloosa during the A&M game wanted them to go after Manziel and just attack him. But that's not the way the defense wanted to play that game, and I believe they have to play that same exact way this week. You cannot just attack Bo Wallace. That's what he wants you to do. He wants you to bite on either the fake or bite on him running and give it to Jeff Scott. You have to stay at home, wait for him to come to you. Maybe it's a 2 or 3 yard gain, but it's better than a 15 to 20 yard gain on the ground as well.
Better than 15 to 20 yard gain on the ground as well. Better to contain the run and force the play back inside to get good stops and not contain and ended up having Bo Wallace, Jeff Scott breaking a big play on you. But for Ole Miss, what do they have to do early, whether it be offensively, defensively, special teams, to take the crowd out of this game early? Because you're coming to Alabama. You're coming into Bryant-Denny Stadium. Those fans are rambunctious. Those fans are wild. Those fans are going to have that pulse energy meter skyrocketing in Bryant-Denny. What does Ole Miss have to do to just take the crowd out of the game?
I mean, I believe, I'm not like everybody else. I have a different opinion. I believe that they have to come out with a slow, methodical drive. A lot of people say you have to come out.
Pull a Jim McElwain. Oh, my goodness.
A lot of people say you have to come out there and make a statement really fast. Score real quickly, tell them you're here. No, I believe, and I noticed this last week at the Colorado State game. I started getting frustrated when Colorado State started not being consistent, but they kept lingering on the field, and their offense stayed out there for a while longer than what I wanted.
So ball control can be key in this possession of the ball.
Pulling Alabama on Alabama. They always like time of possession, they always like controlling the ball, controlling the tempo. If they can control the tempo and slow it down, I know they don't like playing at the slow pace, but you keep it at a steady pace to your liking, I believe that will help them a lot more this week.
That will help them a lot more this week. Also, Ole Miss cannot turn the ball over in this game. Bo Wallace cannot turn the ball over. You can't have any fumbles. Seeing that how the Alabama defense has been so good in the past couple of seasons, it's been through getting turnovers, not only getting turnovers, but scoring off those turnovers. Ole Miss cannot turn the ball over. Ole Miss cannot have penalties in this game. You're going into a hostile environment. The place is going to be night. You can't have false starts. You cannot have unsportsmanlike. You cannot have silly penalties that can really negate your offensive flow. But Ole Miss will come into this game with the mindset of trying to upset the Alabama Crimson Tide. Ole Miss is ranked this season. They're ranked 21st in the nation. They have not beaten a number one team in the nation. They have not beaten the AP Top 25 team, I want to say, since 1988. So this is a huge game for Ole Miss, being the fact that for the first time ever since the Manning years of Archie in the 70s and Peyton Manning in the early, not Peyton, but Eli Manning in the early 2000s, Ole Miss does have that swagger coming back to Oxford. And in this meeting of these two teams, Alabama and Ole Miss have met 60 times. And the last time Ole Miss has beaten Alabama was in 2003 with Eli Manning. Ole Miss won 43-28. According to the boys in Vegas, Ivan, they have this as a 17.5 point spread in Alabama's favor. Do you think this is too much, or do you think the gambling boys in Nevada finally had this kind of right?
They have it right. They're almost perfect, I would say, on it. I predict this game to be a 2-touchdown deficit in Alabama's favor. I just see this game, Ole Miss hanging around, maybe halftime we're tied, maybe halftime there's a 1-touchdown lead by Alabama. I don't predict Alabama to be trailing by either more than a touchdown at one point in this game. I do believe if Ole Miss does get the ball first, I do believe they will come out there and score. They will put up points. They are capable, as we've seen this season. I believe that this is a different Alabama team after last week. I believe they're finally their eyes have opened up and they've seen.
They recognize just because they're Alabama, you can't just expect folks to lay down.
They finally starting to believe Saban's message of this is not last year's team. This is you. You've got to make your own mark and make your own record here at the University of Alabama. And I believe this will be the week where they start that and they start building towards the game against LSU as well.
We've talked a lot about Ole Miss on the show this far, but let's get into Alabama. Starting off defensively. What must Alabama do defensively to really slow down Ole Miss? Start off with the secondary. Did not have a good game against Texas A&M. We're talking about what must Landon Collins, Ha-Ha Clinton-Dix, Benny Sinceri as the three leaders. Of course, John Fulton, Deion Blues, Jones, the secondary as a whole. What do they need to do in this game at home to reestablish themselves as a force on the Alabama defense?
Trust and have communications with your other teammates. Obviously, they've got to trust that C.J. Mosley's going to have things controlled further up the field with Bo Wallace. And a quarterback can have all day to throw, but if he has one linebacker always following him, he really can't rush. So if the cornerbacks can hold their ground and make sure they stay in their zones or make sure they stand their men, they will be successful in this game. It's just a matter of trusting your teammates and trusting that they can do the job that has been assigned to them by the coaching staff.
You mentioned the word rush there, Ivan. Now we go into the defensive line of Alabama. Adrian Hubbard and Stinson, and of course Xavier Dixon. People talk about, especially defensive coordinator Kirby Smart, talks about Adrian Hubbard. He raves about this guy. He says all the time, if Adrian Hubbard ever gets the mindset that he's a pure pass rusher and he really starts to build up that speed and that momentum against the quarterback and bringing him down, Adrian Hubbard could really be a showstopper in the SEC, along with Dixon, along with Stinson. But what can Alabama's defensive line do if Bo Wallace is not running zone read, if he's actually dropping back in the pass, in the pocket to pass the football? What can this defensive line do to generate a rush to kind of get Bo Wallace to feel their presence and bring him down?
You just got to push. It's easy. It's just you got to win the battles in the trenches. You've got to push their linemen back at Bo Wallace. And I believe another way the defensive line can help out the rest of the defense is if they do send a blitz, So let's see how Jeff Scott does pass block if they're passing.
That's interesting.
Let's see how Jeff Scott, because we really haven't seen a lot from that. Let's see how his pass blocking is. And if you see that you can take advantage of that, I believe then you can see us send we will see a lot more blitzes then. But I believe you've got to test Jeff Scott not only on the ground, but also in his blocking schemes, because not all running backs obviously are great blockers.
Not all running backs are great blockers. Indeed, they're Ivan. Another aspect that you just pointed out was third down conversions. Alabama struggles in third down conversions. Alabama, there are games where they go 50% convert third downs, and there are games that Alabama barely converts 20%. This could be the big thing for Ole Miss. If they can consistently convert third downs and keep their offense on the field, they really have a legitimate shot of keeping this game close or pulling out the upset. So what does Ole Miss have to do in this game, and what does Alabama have to do in this game to really keep that down and distance manageable to avoid third and long, but to convert those manageable third downs?
Both teams have to do practically the same thing. Take what the defense gives you, obviously. That's pretty easy. Secondly, though, I believe Ole Miss has to, like I said earlier, control the tempo. Alabama, though, I believe has to be the team that tries, and I don't want to say do the high-flying offense, but I believe they have to be the team that wants to go out there and, because I believe they have more to show actually than Ole Miss. Ole Miss is actually coming over here. They know they're underdogs. Even if they lose, that they can easily just say we only lost to the number 1 team in the nation. Alabama has to prove, hey, we're facing the number 21 team in the nation, and we're going to show you why we're still Alabama, and we've got to show you that we are improved, and that we're not just going to be monotonous throughout the entire season and walking. It seems like we're sleepwalking throughout the entire season.
Got to prove that Alabama's not sleepwalking, that they are the number 1 team in the nation for a reason. They're Ivan. But we talk a lot on this show about A.J. McCarron, and be there as a man. Yes, he's a senior leader. Yes, he's an efficient quarterback. But have you really seen some areas so far this season where he can even improve on going into this matchup?
There's only been one instance this whole season, and it came last week against Colorado State. I just don't know what he was thinking on the interception that he threw. Obviously, that's a situation where I believe in previous years, AJ would have just thrown the ball away.
Or probably took it down, probably like 5 yards and get out of bounds.
Correct. It just seemed like he was trying to do a little too much on that play, and I believe with him stepping up as the legitimate team leader on offense, I just believe that he feels like he has to do everything, and I believe he has to take a step back, take a deep breath, and say, I have weapons around me, I have teammates around me that are willing to have my back and will help me out. And I believe he has to understand that not every play has to be a game. There can be incompletions. You just have to trust that your offensive line and your receivers and running backs can get the job done and help you get 10 more yards the very next play.
As many coaches would always say, they always keep the ball possession on your side. Play, and as Nick Saban says, play the next down. You play the next down. Don't try to do too much. Don't try to turn the ball over. Something's not there, throw it away. Get what you can get and play the next down of the next possession. But before we get into our predictions, and of course this game here that we got here for you fans out there via YouTube, we're going to talk about the offensive line. Last week, against Colorado State, the offensive line, Alabama only got 66 yards rushing. Offensive line this week, what does Ryan Kelly, the Quandro brothers who's still trying to find their way to be more consistent on the offensive line, and of course Anthony Steen, what does Alabama's offensive line need to do in the run game to really establish their presence as being able to help T.J. Yeldon and Kenyon Drake and the Justin Fowler, D. Hart, and the skill set of other backs coming in to pound the ball?
Two things, man. You have to control the line of scrimmage. Make sure that you're the dominant team and showing that you're the force of nature, that you are the Alabama offensive line. Second of all, and it specifically is talking to the Quandro brothers, specifically Cyrus Quandro.
I was calling them out once again on 15 and counting. The Quandro brothers, come on now.
I praised them in the previous week because they had made improvements in the A&M game from Virginia Tech. But yet again, Cyrus Quandro with 2 penalties. You cannot have penalties on the offensive line, and especially multiple penalties. Not just from the whole offensive line, especially not from the same player, and the same player that is returning starter from a national title team.
And a returning starter that is looked at to be possibly a number 1 first-round pick in the 2014 draft, according to Todd McShay.
You can't have that as the offensive line. You cannot have penalties. that cause your team to lose yardage and lose momentum. It could have, luckily that was on a pretty much pointless play, it was an incompletion, but you can't have like an 80-yard touchdown pass or maybe a 20-yard run by Yeldon and it's called back for holding. You can't have that if you're the Alabama.
It really kills the momentum of a drive of the team, so Alabama cannot have penalties as well. The offensive line has got to reassert themselves as far as the ground and pound game go, being able to trying to help Yeldon, Kenyon Drake, and the other backs on that team get up and down the field. But we're going to get into everybody's favorite aspect of the show, and that is predictions for Ole Miss and Alabama. Starting off with you, Ivan. The boys in Vegas playing with dirty money. They're going to go with the 17.5 point spread. But what is your prediction for this game, Ivan?
I mean, I'm predicting the game will be 38-24 Alabama. I believe Vegas had it almost near correct. They had a 17-point. I'm only going with the 2 touchdowns, as I said. I believe Ole Miss will hang around for a while. I just believe 38-24 would be a good score. I do believe Alabama will be in the 30s. Obviously, we've only seen them put up 40 points, and that was against A&M, so I'm trying to stay reluctantly away from the 40-point margin. But I do believe that 38-24 will be a good score. And I do believe, like I said, Jeff Scott will have a coming-out party. I do, however, believe that Bo Wallace, I wouldn't say struggle, but he won't be the star of the game. Like I said, I believe Monty Creef and Jeff Scott will be the stars of the game, and on the Alabama side of the ball, I believe A.J. McCarron, and I finally believe Amari Cooper will have his game and show, I'm still here, don't forget about me.
You're going to go with 38-24. I'm going to actually go with one of our other talking heads, Maxwell Taylor, who is not here, his score from the A&M game. I'm going to say Alabama wins 35-21. I think that, as I have mentioned, Amari Cooper will have a big game. I think DeAndre White will have a big game. I think Christian Jones may break one back on special teams and have a great day receiving the ball as well. The offensive line will open up holes for Kenyon Drake. He should have, in my opinion, a 100-yard rushing game in this performance. Bo Wallace will have a good game passing the ball. I think Dante Moncrief will exact his revenge somewhat. He'll have a good game receiving. Jeff Scott will find a way to make something happen, but Alabama will pull it out 35-21. But before we go on to our next segment, just like Ivan White's Cup here has become a staple of 15 County, fun games here on 15 County have also become a staple of this show. And we're going to get into our fun game of the week called Name That Player. Alabama Ole Miss edition. Ivan, are you ready to play Name That Player?
Yes, sir.
Let's play Name That Player on 15 County. Starting off with number 1, Ivan. In 2009, this player had 28 carries for 172 yards in the win and the 22-3 victory against Ole Miss for Alabama. 2009, this running back. Name it.
Mark Ingram?
Mark Ingram is correct. Mark Ingram had 28 carries for 172 yards in that win against Ole Miss in 2009. That game was one of the games that sparked his Heisman conversation. Of course, Mark Ingram won the Heisman in 2009. Number 2, on October 3rd, 1970, that's way before our time. October 3rd, 1970, which quarterback put Ole Miss on the map by leading the Rebels to a 48-23 victory against Alabama?
48-23.
Remember,
I want
1970.
to say Archie Manning.
Oh, and you are correct. It is Archie Manning. Ivan 2 for 2 thus far. Number 3. In 1999 and 2000, Alabama had a powerful running back. No, it's not Trent Richardson, Eddie Lacy, or Mark Ingram. But in 1999 and 2000, Alabama had a powerful running back. This guy carried the Crimson Tide to a 30-24 victory against Ole Miss in Oxford in 1999, and a 45-7 victory against Ole Miss in Bryant-Denny Stadium in 2000. Who was this running back? 1999-2000.
1999-2000. I believe that player was on one of my favorite covers of Madden in history. I want to say Sean Alexander.
Oh my, 3 for 3. Ivan White 100% so far. We're going to go over number 4. Number 4. Before he was flip-flopped on draft day, this quarterback put Ole Miss back on the map in the early 2000s. Ole Miss defeated Alabama in 2001, 27-24. And it defeated Alabama in 2003, 43-28. Who was his quarterback? 2003.
I want to to say the human interception machine right now, Eli Manning?
That is correct. Keep in mind, yes, Eli Manning put Ole Miss back in the map. He has 2 Super Bowl rings from the New York Giants, and he's very interception prone so far right now. Ivan White, you are on fire. God bless this water wagon. And number 5, for the juggler, for the 5 for 500% win on the show, and the first winner of a 15 and counting game, number 5, Ivan White. In 2011, this running back had his Heisman moment for Alabama against Ole Miss. He shakes and bakes defenders down the field for a 69-yard touchdown run. He ended up finishing 3rd in the Heisman voting in 2011 because of this play. Who was that running back?
Running back, I believe he just got traded to the Indianapolis Colts. I want to say Trent Richardson.
It is Trent Richardson, and lo and behold, Ivan White becomes the first winner of 15 and counting's name that player. Ivan White has just won the game. But going back to Ole Miss and Alabama, that game will be played on this Saturday, September the 28th. September 28th, 2013, right here at Bryant-Denny Stadium. ESPN will be airing the game live. But that'll be all for the Alabama Ole Miss segment. We're going to get you caught up on some SEC action that will be taking place this week right after this. Back to 15 and counting. We've just finished breaking down the Ole Miss-Alabama matchup of this upcoming Saturday, which will be live at Bryant-Denny Stadium. ESPN will be having that game aired live. But we're going to get into some SEC action that will be coming at you being the fans and Ivan and I here being the analyst and host of this show right here. And the first game that jumps out the page to a lot of people is number 6 LSU taking on number 9 Georgia this weekend. This looks like it's going to be a very fun game to watch on.
Indeed, it will be another game, another big game for Georgia. It seems like you get people starting to question what they did to deserve this kind of season and schedule that they've gotten so far, but they're going to have to live with it, and they're doing a pretty good job of adapting to what beat South Carolina. Obviously lost a tough game to Clemson, but this is obviously another big game, and this is finally, I believe, the first test for LSU. Obviously they beat TCU in Cowboy Stadium in the Cowboys Classic, but that was, as we've seen now, after TCU lost to Texas Tech, this is now obviously the TCU teams we've grown accustomed to. So I believe this will finally be the first test that LSU has to show the nation that our new prolific offense with Mettenberger is now better and improved in the previous years, and show, hey, maybe when we come to Tuscaloosa, if Alabama does their job, it could possibly be another showdown of the century with 1 versus 2.
Going back to what you mentioned about Georgia, Georgia had kind of a tough game against North Texas last week. North Texas actually competed with those Bulldogs between the hedges and the Athens at halftime. The score was 21-21. North Texas and Georgia were tied. Of course, in the second half, Georgia really did establish themselves and won the game 45-21. But this is another big game for Aaron Murray. Another time to prove, can he win the big game? He did it against South Carolina. Can he go out against this defense of John Chavis and the LSU Tigers and prove that he can win another big game?
As I said in previous weeks, obviously, yes, this is a big game for national title implications. I still don't believe this is a big game for Aaron Murray. I still believe for a quarterback to have a big game, you have to show it outside of your home state, outside of your home stadium, and make sure that you prove you can win on the road, which is what Aaron Murray has yet to do, even in a neutral site game. I believe this will be a game where he has to just show up and play. You are not expected to win this game, but you're expected to hang around because you do have the luck that you have this game at home. So you have to play great around your home fans, and I do believe Aaron Murray will step up again. But again, as I've said in previous weeks, this is not a game where if he does win, you can say he can win the big ones now. He's won 2 in a row. He's won 2 matches against ranked opponents, but I still want to see him do something on the road. And then I will believe that he'll be an elite SEC quarterback.
Doing something on the road is correct there, Ivan. Also with Aaron Murray, you do have Todd Gurley there as your running back to take a lot of the pressure off the passing game. But going to LSU now, Zach Mettenberger's gone from being the doubtful quarterback to this guy can really spin the pigskin now. I mean, Todd McShay, ESPN's own Todd McShay and Mel Kiper Jr. are looking at his NFL stock kind of rising. What's going on with Mettenberger?
I believe he's been like a lot of SEC quarterbacks, and I believe the stock of the SEC quarterback is on the rise throughout the past couple of years. You went from the SEC to have quarterbacks, maybe 1 or 2 that are prolific passers, and the other one were Like you have Alabama
Question
quarterbacks, question marks, and then game managers that they call Alabama quarterbacks. You're seeing now a generation of quarterbacks with the SEC with the A.J. McCarrons, the Aaron Murrays, the Bo Wallaces now. You can
The
see
Manziels.
the Manziels. You can see them now that they're progressing in the real, I wouldn't want to say real, they've always been real quarterbacks, but they're now getting attention getting because of the way they play on the field and the way they do step up in certain occasions. But I believe Aaron Murray and Zach Mettenberger both have to show, they both have something to prove in this game. They both have to show which quarterback is not only progressed the most, but which quarterback is ready to step up and say, hey, we can now win an SEC title and we can now dethrone the Alabama Crimson Tide for their SEC title.
You look at LSU, and the first thing that comes to mind is they love him, they hate him, the hat and smile. Some people love him, some people cannot stand him. He is that gambling coach that you don't know what's going to happen. You think he's going to punt it on fourth down, and he goes for it. You never know what to expect with the genius of Les Miles. So the question being, do you think Les Miles will go for it numerous times on fourth down in this game if that opportunity presents itself?
It wouldn't be an LSU game if he didn't. That's Les Miles to a T. You have to expect the unexpected. And that's also what Mark
You
Rick...
think he'll onside kick it too?
It's a possibility, and that's also what Mark Rick has done lately too. Again, in the SEC title game last season, he ran a fake punt. This season, I believe they ran a fake punt. That fake punt is now becoming a staple to where you have to always be on the lookout for it. And I believe they're trying to incorporate it slowly and steadily. The unexpected is becoming expected in Georgia when it comes to special teams.
When it comes to special teams, it's correct. You gotta expect what is going to be thrown at you. And like Georgia, MSU has always had a pretty decent stable of running backs with Kenny Hilliard, Alfred Blue, and Jeremy Hill taking the pressure off Zach Mettenberger. But let's talk about both teams' defenses here. Both teams defensively, we know they've lost a lot from last year, so we don't have to get into that conversation. But which defense do you think will show up in this game? Will LSU's defense show up and really knock Aaron Murray around? Or will Georgia's defense show up and really give Zach Mettenberger a hard time?
I want to go with Georgia only because they're at home, but this game is just so close to call. I wouldn't be surprised if the LSU defense did step up and have a very significant game and put themselves on the map as maybe one of the best defenses in all the NCAA. And I believe that Georgia will only step up because the crowd behind them will energize that defense and keep them running around and keep them having their swagger and their mentality up and ready to hit somebody and ready to take names and make sure that the nation knows, yes, we have lost to Clemson, but that was the first game of the season, and we've, as I said with Alabama earlier, progressed and gotten better as the season's going on.
Alabama did progress and got better as the season has went on. It's correct, Ivan. And also with Georgia and Ole Miss, they want to get better and progress definitely as the season goes on. But we're going to get into a prediction for this game. LSU, Georgia, Les Miles, Mark Rick. Both teams want to win. Both teams want to hopefully go to Atlanta to play for an SEC title. Both teams want to hopefully play for a national title. Who do you see coming out in this one? It's number 6, number 9, top 10 matchup.
I really hope Georgia wins. I'm predicting they'll win. I'm predicting Georgia in the game 35-31 right now. I wouldn't be surprised if LSU wins because this is just such a tight game where you can't find many matchups. As you can see, Mettenberger and Murray, they're both have a lot of similarities. The run games have a lot of similarities. The receiving games, they have so much similarities. The defense has so much similarities. It's just a game where you can't pick either or. It's like you make a prediction.
Does the special team have similarities too?
Well, now with Georgia running trick plays, yes, they do. They do have a lot of similarities. It's just so, I know I keep using the word similarities a lot. They're just so alike that I have to predict that score, but I wouldn't be surprised if LSU does pull it out at the end.
So you're going to go with 34-28?
I'll say 35-31.
You're going to go 35-31 in favor of Georgia. I'm gonna pick LSU 27-20, and the reason why is you don't know what Les Miles is going to do. He could go for it on fourth down. He could onside the kick. You don't know what's going on under that hat. And with Cam Cameron being able to help Zach Mettenberger blossom, and with the running game that LSU has there, and keep in mind John Chambers is probably going to pull out every trick in the book defensively. I like LSU 27-20, close win. I think Zach Mettenberger has one more drive than Aaron Murray. I think Aaron Murray will make one or two mistakes in this game. I think that LSU will get the job done 27-20, beating out Georgia. Next game on this list that jumps out at me is it involves the Bluegrass State again. It does involve Kentucky. Not basketball, but football. It does involve the Kentucky Wildcats. It's number 20, Florida, going against Kentucky. And for Florida, a little sad news for the Gators last week as quarterback Jeff Driscoll, who you really feel for him. I mean, he comes out of the Manning camp blazing. He comes out throwing spiral passes and touch passes and deep balls. And people actually thought, man, with the defense Florida has, and, year, what, 2 or 3 for Muschamp?
I believe so. I believe it's 3.
Year 3 for Muschamp. Muschamp can finally have his finger on the pulse, and Jeff Driscoll can finally show that why he chose to come back from football over going to baseball. And lo and behold, he struggles in the first 2 games of the season and breaks the fibula against Tennessee this past weekend. You feel for Jeff Driscoll. His season's over, and now he's on redshirt junior, quarterback Tyler Murphy. It's his first year starting. Way to start your first year, your first full game. Throwing against the SEC, now be there as a mate, it's Kentucky, but you're throwing to the SEC fire. 20th in the nation, being Florida. What does Will Muschamp have to do to get his rookie, as far as on the field time goes, but his redshirt junior quarterback, his first full career start, what does he have to do to get Tyler Murphy benefits here?
Pick plays to where he knows he can be successful. This isn't Jeff Driscoll. You obviously have to change the playbook up a little bit to where he'll be a little more comfortable in the pocket.
So you're saying that more screen plays, more draw plays, more drag route plays?
Yes, and obviously we do love the state of Kentucky.
we love horses in basketball. I mean, who doesn't love horses?
But obviously, if you're going to have a quarterback making his debut against an SEC opponent, again, Kentucky is your perfect opponent. Yes, I know they had a good showing against Louisville. But again, Louisville is no Florida, even with all the injuries that have hurt this team this season. I believe this game will help him and boost his confidence, because this is a defense that, yes, it's an SEC defense, but yes, it's Kentucky. Still, you have to remember that I believe this will be a game where he starts to get a little more comfortable. Obviously, it's nowhere near the caliber defenses that he'll see later on in the season when they have to face the likes of Georgia and other teams. But I do believe this will help him out in the long run.
I think this will help him out in the long run. Of course, with Florida has that defense that it's suffocating. I mean, their first and third down defense giving up between 12 and 20% of third down conversions. They don't allow many teams to convert on third down. So what can Georgia's defense do to pretty much get their offense back on the field quicker defensively? You're going against a Kentucky offense. What must Florida's defense do to really stop Kentucky on third down, slow down Kentucky completely, and kind of keep Murphy on the field so he can get the aspect of the game quicker and grow?
You just have to make sure that you make the offense uncomfortable. Kentucky does have somewhat of an offense. We saw it a couple weeks ago when they faced Louisville. They do have the capability of hanging around there.